Hey, welcome to the Recruiting Game Podcast. I'm here. We're on episode number, I think this will be like number 10 of the Recruiting Game Podcast. I'm Trent and I'm here with my guest today, one of my good friends and quarterback coaches for a couple of years now, Josh Straughan. How you doing?
Good, man. Good to be on here. I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, basically, Josh has coached me since I was about, gosh, probably like 16 or 15.
Yeah.
And we've been good friends since. He's guided me through my recruiting journey, was a big part of that for sure. Definitely would not be where I am now without him. So I'm super excited to have him on the podcast, kind of talk about what he does. He's also the co-founder of PrepsRecruiting, which is a recruiting service which has done a great job, who I personally worked with. So I'll kind of let you take the reins, Josh. Just introduce yourself, kind of tell your story a little bit and where you're at now.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. And I'm glad to be on. I think, a lot of this stuff, that you're doing, through your Twitter and just connecting with people and just educating people. I think that's the key to all of this is, there's really not an audio book on how to get recruited. And it's one of those things where, it takes experience, to kind of know and how to maneuver through it, and which you obviously have. And, I have, myself as well. But a lot of the educational stuff that I see that you're, talking to kids about and putting out there is really, really good. So, I'm super happy, just blessed to be a part of this. As far as, myself, I had a pretty different career high school wise. I was a 3-sport athlete. I got recruited, to play football and baseball. I got recruited to play basketball a little bit too, but, not really seriously. And, ultimately I, decided to go play football at the next level. I had some baseball offers. And so I was on conversations with, college football and baseball coaches. And, for me, I think the biggest part about my journey that set me up for success, in college and then, playing professionally would be just picking the fit over the name on the jersey. And when you pick the fit, and when I chose a school that was a little bit smaller in the state of Alabama, Stillman College, and they asked me to play both sports there. It ended up getting me opportunity to play earlier. I was just more I was valued as a young person trying to figure things out and compete on a college level field. And I got some good opportunity. I made the most of it, fortunately, and I feel like God guided me a lot, through that process. And just, again, just kind of the randomness of the school that I went to, but I played really small high school sports, and I had a heck of a time getting local universities to recruit me, man. I think that happens for a lot of kids. I talk to a lot of families, every year. And a lot of what I do is just like educate families for free on how do you get recruited? And I'll tell you, I'm always amazed, on how often local universities refuse to recruit talented kids. I don't know if it's something where, they think, oh, well, we got him, he's in our backyard, and so we're going to look elsewhere. I think there's a little bit of that, a little bit of, well, we're around the high school sports here. They're not that good. And so they get overlooked. And so, you know, um, as far as my journey goes, I had a dad that was really, really educated on the process, or I don't even know if he, and not based off of experience, honestly, just like a lot of logical reasoning. I had a very intelligent dad, and he ended up coaching some NAIA football, down the road after I went to college. But, basically what we did, before the Twitter and the Instagram, and, we would have like hundreds of, envelopes in our kitchen floor with the university name and the coaches. We'd send it out to each coach. And so what I think people miss on is it is a lot of time and effort if you want to get recruited. And, the days of a college coach showing up to a game field or a showcase field or a practice field randomly looking for kids just doesn't happen anymore. And it honestly started phasing out that way, in the early 2000s when I was going through my recruiting stuff, in the 07, 08, 09, 2010. That's kind of when I went through my stuff. But, fortunately, I had a dad that really aggressively marketed me. And so even though I wasn't recruited by a bunch of local universities, I was able to, get my stuff out there to programs on a national scale. And I, I was amazed. I played, 8-man football, and I played small school baseball. And I was able to get recruited by, programs all over the country, and even some ones that were pretty surprising. And so, that's kind of that. I went to college. I played, started 4 years in college. I had some injury stuff. I had shoulder surgery. I had some stuff there, but I, ended up, you know, basically fulfilling my, sports dream as far as playing professionally. I didn't make it to the NFL, but I bounced around in the CFL. I played, indoor professional football for a while. I think I signed with 4 or 5 CFL, teams up there. So I had an experience in the professional world as well. And I can tell you, the crazy thing is professional world is not any different as far as getting, marketing yourself to go play pro football. Obviously, you have to have good film in college. You have to be productive in college, but it also matters who your agent is and who's helping you, connect the dots out there. And so if you're not getting out to pro teams and you're not selling yourself and building relationships, like that stuff just doesn't happen. Unless, of course, you're a first round, draft pick in the NFL. So for me, I see a lot of parallels in that. But yeah, no, I had a very interesting journey. I transferred up to the Division I level to Southern Illinois as a grad transfer, before all the really transferring got really crazy. And I had a good experience up there too. But ultimately, I'm just really grateful and blessed that I was at a place that gave me the opportunity to play and compete. More so, these college coaches usually are not going to say, hey, you're going to come and be a starter, but they gave me a chance to compete and compete early. And that was a major difference maker for me. So, anyways,
Awesome.
yep.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess we'll kind of just jump into what we were talking about a little bit before the podcast. You were kind of
Yeah.
talking about, finding the right fit. Like you said, you've educated a lot of families on the recruiting
I have,
process.
yeah.
Um, what's kind of some of the things that you feel like people miss when it comes to the recruiting process?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and you and I have had. I mean, we had conversation with this when you were in high school,
Oh yeah,
or
all the
early
time.
on. I mean, and the thing is, the biggest mistake I see families make, and it does not matter the sport. With me, we do football, baseball, and basketball. But primarily, football and baseball. At least we have, and we recently added basketball. But my brother played Division I basketball too, so I was a part of that process. I have a lot of friends that played, professionally in basketball, either overseas, even in the NBA, like pre NBA stuff, and really the process is all the same, and the mistakes are all the same. And what I mean by the mistakes is I don't want to say it's not 100%, but I would tell you I've spoken to thousands of families over the last decade on the recruiting, and the overwhelmingly majority entirely skip the film evaluation process. It's skipped, and so what families do is they show up to camps, they spend hundreds of dollars on showcases, and um, baseball really popular is travel ball, which, all these things have a place in the recruiting. I'm not denying that you shouldn't go to those things. But if you show up to those things thinking that that is going to be where you're going to initially get evaluated and have direct contact, you're unfortunately wrong. And so, a lot of what I educate families on is just put together the resume or like a cover letter or information on your son, or daughter for that matter, and put together some good film. And even if it's not, depending on the sport, obviously football is more of a game film thing, but, basketball film, baseball film, like that can be put out in a workout setting, and it can be a very controlled environment. And so, Trent, you played baseball, and, if you would have marketed yourself for baseball and continued on your senior, you probably would have had some, smaller level opportunities as well. And it's
Yeah.
one of those things where, you have to get that on college coaches' desks. Okay. Tweeting it out is great. Posting it on your Instagram is fine. But, there's 7 billion Twitter users. You have to physically and directly send it out. And it has to be very, very consistent. And it has to be weekly, Monday through Friday. You can't wait till the weekend when coaches aren't in the office. You can't send it out late at night when you're laying in bed. You have to allocate specific times for yourself, and you have to essentially market yourself. And ultimately, Today's day and age is just different with the NIL stuff, and everyone's mindset on the NIL stuff. Really the NIL is only affecting, 1% of college prospects. However, and then maybe it's a little more than that, but it's a low percentage. However, recruiting is just a business anyways. And these college coaches are getting paid to recruit and find the best players for their team. And so, if you are not marketing yourself or your son or prospect like he is a business or she is a business, the reality is that you are going to not have a ton of opportunity. And even for I've talked to families. Well, we sent out some emails to 10 schools. Okay, well, there's 1,000 in the United States, 1,000 plus for baseball or football. And again, I'm not sitting here saying that if let's just put myself in the recruiter's shoes. Like, I'm not saying that I'm interested in every 1,000 school, every 1,000 school in America, but ultimately traction and exposure, they allow you to leverage interest, and they allow you to, even in some cases, I know for my recruiting specifically, it allowed me to leverage scholarship dollars from one program to the other. I will never forget this. This is a funny story. This is before Jackson State was really Jackson State. Coach Commangy was there at the time, and they had offered me a full scholarship, and so did Alcorn State. So, two HBCUs in the SWAC, in the state of Mississippi. I visited both. And then Stillman College, which is actually located in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. At the time, they had a good football program. They had a really good baseball program, and they still have a really good baseball program. I had went to Stillman, and the other ones are Division 1, and Stillman was Division 2, and so we met, and my mom was on the visit, and basically they offered me. So they offered me when I was there officially. They had verbally offered me on the phone, but they offered me officially. They wanted to make sure that it was official, and they said that the money that they were going to get me was X, Y, and Z, and to go away from home, basically I wasn't going to settle for basically not something that wasn't close to a full scholarship or a full scholarship. And so, me and my mom were like, well, look, we love Stillman. It's probably a better fit than the other places, but Jackson and Alcorn State offer them a full scholarship. If you want me, you're going to have to match that. And we said it point blank period. You could call my college coach up on the phone and he'd tell you, yes, that's how it went. And so it was as simple as this. He made a call to the athletic director. 15 minutes later, boom, I was offered a full scholarship. And so, parents, a lot of times, and families, they don't understand that that's kind of how it works in a lot of cases. There's a lot of parameters for regular students in college. Athletes don't really need to abide by those parameters. It's, hey, well, we've applied. A lot of, folks I talk to, well, we've applied to these schools, and, we're going to go on a visit. And, my first question is, are you talking to the college coaches within that program? Well, no, we're going to try to get in contact. Okay, don't waste your time and money applying to a school. I've seen kids get accepted to a school in 2 days, 3 months after the deadline because they're athletes. And so those parameters don't really matter, but back to the original discussion of getting traction and exposure allows you to just change the game, and I use this parallel, and I try to create some metaphors that just kind of get people to understand this. Is no one wants to date you until you start dating someone, and then what happens? And so it's the same concept. And if you're not really systematic and you're not calculated with that these days, when it comes to football, when it comes to baseball, and even basketball recruiting, everyone wants to go do it. Whether they love the game, that's the same question. A lot of it, is what the game brings to them and what they can post on Twitter. College coaches would probably agree when they say that. And so you have to stand out in a lot of different ways. And the first process has to be, I have to get evaluated through film. I have to. If I don't, I have no chance, really. I have none.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree with exactly what you said. I mean, from the marketing standpoint to finding the right fit, I think, and then what you touch about the scholarship negotiation, I think that's like such a big point that people miss is like, yeah, those numbers that they give you, they can be messed around, and same with the application stuff. Like, it's not set in stone just because a coach gives you an offer breakdown and it says this number. Like, you can negotiate that, and having those other offers gives you so much leverage. It's like it's
Yeah.
it is business at the end of the day. Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot
Well,
going on.
yeah. And look, I had one of my mentors. He coaches for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now. He won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. He was on Arians' staff, and he's on Todd Bowles' staff now. And he coached at Alabama, he coached at Florida, he coached at Michigan. Worked with a lot of pro guys, and he was the head of quarterback recruiting in the SEC. Okay, on national championship teams, and he would always tell me, "Look, we would have trophy fish and we'd have live well fish." Okay, and I don't for those who aren't fishermen, what the live well is if you're in a bass fishing tournament. You only can accept a certain amount of fish. You only can submit a certain amount of fish, and those fish obviously you want to be the heaviest in weight. Um, but on the flip side, you don't know what your next catch is going to be. So you'll cast in, and right, you'll catch like, oh, well, that's a 3 pound bass. I'm going to put that in the live well. If I don't catch a 5, that's what I'm going to have to roll with. Okay. And so, with recruiting, again, it's one of those things where if you get recruited by 3 schools and they're interested in you, but you're not getting interest from anything beyond that, they're going to sit on you and they're going to consider you a live well fish. Even if you're really, really talented, like honestly, even if you're really, really talented, they're going to sit on you. Like honestly, their job, no matter what, they could have Cam Newton as QB1, Tim Tebow, Bryce Young is QB1. But if you don't think Nick Saban is trying to go and find the next guy better than Bryce Young currently, you're wrong. And so, what you have to understand is you got to get more interest from other places and programs. You can't be content with 3 until you sign pen to paper. For me, I place a lot of my stuff based off of how I would handle if one of my boys was going through it, and they're too young now, but going through the process, like you can verbally offer. My son could even verbally commit. That does not mean that I'm not going to make sure that he's still marketing himself and I'm helping marketing his stuff out to other programs, because nothing is guaranteed until pen is signed to paper. And nowadays, even pen to paper is not guaranteed. I've heard of horror stories at baseball recruiting in Texas Tech. For me personally, I was a quick little story. I was grad transferring from Stillman. And so I had a free transfer. I didn't have to sit out. I was going to grad school. I had completed my undergraduate classes, and Stillman was kind of going through a rough patch financially. And the following year, they actually had to cut the program. But anyways, I had a lot of interest. I had a lot of interest from uh, mid-major Division I, even a couple Power 5 Division I's, and then some Division II programs. And so I went on some visits. I'll never forget, I was sitting in class, and again, I came from really humble beginnings. So we're talking no stands in my high school, football field and baseball field. Like people are parking their trucks and getting old sofas and watching the game. Okay, in the back. And so I remember I had a guy from Texas, Austin, Texas, call me on the phone. I'm in class, and I'm like, man, there's no way. Like, come on. And then all of a sudden, I listen to voicemail. It's Sean Watson. So he was Teddy Bridgewater's coach up at Louisville, and he called me up. He's like, man, we really like you. And at this point, my dad was literally helping me send out email. I mean, I'm in college. I'm doing full load classes. So plus I was a starting quarterback. Plus I was rehabbing shoulder surgery. So I was busy. And so my dad was helping me send that stuff out. And he's like, look, this is basically a verbal offer. I don't want you to post anything yet, which is obviously a red flag now. I don't want you to post anything yet. I got to run back and talk with who was it? It was Charlie Strong at the time. And so I'm geeked. I'm excited, and I had some other smaller Division I and Division II schools already offer me. And again, this is before Twitter leverage and using all that stuff and posting your stuff. This is just like real recruiting. Okay. Anyways, 2 weeks come later, don't hear anything. Right? Don't hear anything, and I'm like, man. So I'm trying to get a hold of him, and eventually he called me back and said, hey, it's not going to work out, which was fine. I had some other small Division I offers. And I ended up going on a couple visits, and I verbally committed to Austin Peay State University. And they are in Clarksville, Tennessee, about 45 minutes north of Nashville. Really good location. My thing for transferring was I had to find a place where I had a really good shot at starting, because I wanted to go play pro. I had some NFL scouts already in contact with me, and some agents already talking to me, and I had to find a place where I could play. I couldn't be a grad transfer and go to a place where I wasn't going to get a good shot to compete. And these coaches, they say whatever they want to just try to beef up their quarterback room. So I had to be pretty careful and cautious. Anyways, I commit to Austin P State verbally. I told the other programs no. I think UT Martin offered me, Charleston Southern. I had some other really good Division II programs and also some other Division I schools recruit and offer me. And their coaching staff gets fired. So their coaching staff gets fired, which again is a major. I'm scrambling now. But their interim, one of the guys who's on my recruiting trip, the interim and the athletic director called me up. The interim drove like 6 hours to see me and said, "Hey, look, we're just trying to maintain your verbal commitment. Okay, the new coaching staff's going to come in, and your offer's here. You're our quarterback for next year. We need you. We don't have anything. Okay, just wait till give us till signing day for transfers, which is December at the time. I think things have changed a little bit, but at December at the time, so I was like, okay, cool. So signing day comes. They haven't hired a new coach. Hey man, I need to sign paperwork. Like we're talking about me moving to across the country. I'm from the Northwest, across the country and starting my grad program. Like I don't have anything in line, so we got to get this going. Josh, just be patient. It's 2 weeks. The AD already talked to me. Everything's locked in. It's just 2 weeks. We'll have a guy. Okay. So they hire a guy 2 weeks later. This is I think December 23rd. They hire a new guy. So a Merry Christmas. And they hire Will Healy and staff, and I think he's at Charlotte now. I'm not trying to put anyone on blast, but it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. Will Healy, they hire a guy, in Will Healy, and he had come from University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, young, good recruiter, good coach, and he had a good staff. He actually turned their program around completely. And I'm like, hey, I'm ready to go, and crickets. Didn't hear back. Didn't hear back from the interim coach. Didn't hear back from the AD. Tried to get in contact with the new staff. Crickets. And at this point, everyone else had already signed. Okay, literally everyone. There was no spots left, and the other programs didn't want me anyways because I didn't want them. I mean, at the end of the day, I had verbally committed somewhere else, and so me and my dad were trying to get a hold of these guys, and eventually they say, hey, yeah, you don't have a scholarship here, which is wild. For me, I mean, they haven't sent a quarterback to go play anything beyond college ever. So I would have been the best quarterback probably in the history of their program, just being honest, just based off of statistical in college and beyond, which, maybe that's arguable. I don't know. I have a lot of confidence in myself, but they didn't even evaluate my tape. If they would have evaluated their tape, they probably would have won some games that following year, but they didn't, right? And so that was a really, really ugly situation. So I'm scrambling. Now I have been thinking I got to go to Division II. And I ended up messaging, Coach Hill on Facebook, who was just a new coach, youngest Division I coach in the history of Division I. Just got a job at Southern Illinois University, and that's where I ended up committing. And they brought me on, and again, I enjoyed my senior year there, and I got to start and experience some really good things and some hardships. But ultimately, back to the original point is you have to really watch out for yourself, and you got to keep your interests. Your best interest needs to be with you, and you just got to be careful because that is a story that happens to all the time. And it's one of those things where I tell families a lot. I was actually started reading a book. It's called Neutral Mind Thinking. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's something like that. Something with just neutral thinking. But the reason I tell families that I think that they should have a part in their kids' recruiting, absolutely, the athlete needs to take responsibility for their recruiting, but teenage kids, young kids in their 20s, it's really hard not to be emotionally connected. And you have to have a neutral business mindset. You're going to have more no's than yeses, unless you're a 0.01% of the prospects. You're going to have more no's than yeses. Even if you're going to go Division I, you're going to have more no's than yeses. Because what's going to happen is you're going to, if I get a mid-major offer to Middle Tennessee State University to go pitch, but I want to go to LSU might not be interested in me. And so you just got to approach it as a business mindset and understand that these guys are going to tell you a lot of things. You have to just focus on the program that is a good fit for you. But, most importantly, they value you and you're going to get an opportunity to play there or at least compete to play. And honestly, that's really all you can ask. So,
Yeah. And I was talking about this last episode with one of my roommates, and We were talking about that like sixth sense of like being able to pick up on a coach when they're kind of like, you're saying some stuff that's like, I don't know if I really trust you there. And it's like that's such a big part is having that
Yeah.
sense of like being able to tell when a coach is, maybe not telling the full truth, and that way you can kind of avoid those situations where so many people walk into where they're like they step on campus and next thing you know they told them they weren't going to switch positions, now they're switching positions, or like, hey, you're going to
Yeah.
compete, but now you're not even close. You're not getting sniffing anything, and you
Yeah.
just have to kind of get a feel for that and notice those red flags.
Yeah, you can. And also too, I would just say, it sometimes it's really hard to even get a feel for
Yeah,
it. But when you do have a feel, again, you don't run away from that situation. You definitely don't commit to that situation, but you don't run away from that situation. What you do is you utilize that relationship and that recruiting just like they are doing for you. And so what you say is, oh yeah, I don't know. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. I remember, the kids I've worked with in the past with, the three sports recruiting, and then also, just, myself personally, one of the first questions these programs ask is who's recruiting you? Who's recruiting you? Who's in contact with you? A lot of these guys, and this may offend some college coaches, but it's one of those things where I don't really know if they evaluate kids like they say they do. I mean, how many kids are they really, really sitting down as a staff and watching? Because I mean, I see kids miss all the time. I've seen some. I mean, and I played with kids at the Division II level, which they should have had no business playing Division II. And not to knock on Division II. Division II's unbelievable quality athletics. I mean, some of the best players and prospects. I had players at positions on my Division II that were better than players, at my Division I. Just being totally honest. So for me, a lot of that stuff's interchangeable, and I think parents too, they don't understand that the discrepancy, the difference between Division II and Division I is like this. It's like barely
yeah,
anything. People are like, well, we're just going to see how things happen his senior year, and worst case scenario, we'll go to Division II. That's not how that works. You know what I mean? And it just doesn't work like that. And so, but yeah, you gotta mind your P's and Q's when it's coming to, communication with these coaches. And again, it's one of those things where this is a business. These coaches, most of them at the collegiate level, most of them do not care for you personally. Okay. You are, and some do. Okay. I'm not going to say it's not a universal thing, and some do, and maybe more, but, a lot more do once you get on campus. But ultimately, these guys are trying to win football, baseball, or basketball games. And their job is to find the best, uh, players possible to allow them to do that. And sometimes it's not even to do that. Sometimes it's just, the best possible player just to fill a spot. And so, you kind of got to find the differences between that. And, the other thing too that I didn't even really talk about, too much was everyone wants to talk and blame the transfer portal for recruiting, craziness and chaos these days. Well, how about the coaching portal? The coaching portal is almost as fluid as the transfer portal. And so, you have to cast a wide net. Most prospects, 99% of prospects are going to need to send it out to programs at least regionally or to multiple regions if they really expect to get recruited. I know on the West Coast, that's where you're at. That's where I grew up at. How many Division II programs, football wise, are on the West Coast? There's zero. Or in California, there's zero. And there's a couple up in Washington State where I'm from. One or two in Oregon. There's none in Arizona. Well, actually, no, there's none in Arizona. Yeah. So, it's one of those things where you got to, if you're serious about playing at the next level, like, you're going to have to go out and just mark yourself to different regions in different situations. And what that will do is it's going to maximize your exposure if you can do a good job of it.
yeah, big time, big time. Yeah, I think too many people lock in on one area, or they try to stay too close to home. And I mean, I guess it's just figuring out what your fit is like. If you want to stay close to home, if that's a big priority to you, then hey, like, yeah, on the West Coast, it's hard. I mean, we all know, we both know that
Yeah.
it's really hard if you're on the West Coast because if you're not a Division I guy, you're just probably not gonna find a spot unless, I mean, yeah, like you said,
And even then, even if you're a Division I guy, it's like, I mean, you got the Pac-12. I mean, and really, it's just, it's tough. And here's my argument on that. when families say, look, he's super serious about going to play, but he only wants to go within a 6 hour radius. Okay, well, look, if your son's 6 hours away and he plays college baseball or football, this is a year round thing, you guys. He's not coming
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
He's not coming home. I mean, honestly, he's gonna come home in Thanksgiving, Christmas, and summer for a month. After that, baseball, he's not coming home over the summer. So he'll have a little break in the fall and he'll have a little break in the winter. For football, it's a couple weeks. This is a full-time job. That is what he's going to be around. So, for me, his entire, I mean, and again, people get confused with the social fit and the academic fit. Look, if you're going to be a physicist or you're going to be a rocket scientist, then okay, you can be really specific. The average college student changes their major 3 to 5 times. Okay. And 90% of an athlete in college like yourself who's going through it, like everything is going to be predicated around what?
Yeah.
Football for you. It's it. And yes, your academics matter. I'm not arguing that. But, in today's market, an undergraduate degree is really not getting you too much. So if you want to go make money and be successful in academia, you're going to have to go to grad school anyways. And you can be a lot more hyper specific then, because you don't have to worry about, sport fit. But what I see, and I know this was true for me, is the athletic fit to me is the most important for athletes because the rest just kind of takes care of itself. And that is because your world revolves around athletics. If you are a college athlete, there's no downtime. It's constant. Even on weeks where you're not playing, you have full-time weights, conditioning, and in many programs, you're going to have multiple meetings a week. And so that's your life. If you want to go do it, it's a lot of fun. I loved it. It's not for everyone, but if you want to go do it, that's what you need to expect. And so, all the other extra stuff is great and fine, and the city location, all that stuff's fine. But if you're in I mean, I don't even know. If you're in Eugene, Oregon, and you're a walk on at the University of Oregon for the baseball program, and you're not even getting at bats in practice, you're not even getting a chance to compete in practice. You're just shagging balls or getting very minimal reps. At some point, it doesn't become worth it. Like the benefits aren't there. Like honestly, it just doesn't. I mean, it's grueling. You know what the conditioning's
Yeah.
like.
100%. Brutal.
I was talking to Jaden Mandel, who he's at Fresno State, playing quarterback. We were talking yesterday. Look, that conditioning it makes you question whether you want to be doing this. That running, the lifting weights, like it is. I'm not going to compare it to military type stuff because I think that's a whole different sacrifice, obviously. But when we're talking about breaking you down mentally, it's pretty brutal. And some programs are worse than the others. And that's a different conversation. I don't the strength and conditioning side of things. I think there's some really really good ones out there. I think there's some really bad ones out there, even at the higher Division I ranks. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But again, it's one of those things where your happiness a lot of times or your contentment with where you're at is going to be predicated simply off of are you getting a chance to compete and get reps? That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. The academic though, that I just never like I always knew like the whole time, like even my parents, they cared about the academic fit a little bit, but it's not like unless you're going to Stanford or Ivy League or Cal or like just a really really big
Yeah.
school that like everybody knows the degree on there. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter at the end of the day. Like
It honestly doesn't. It doesn't. And I've talked to like veteran college advisors that specifically work with athletes that have went and played in the MLB, that have went and played professional in the NFL, and like I've talked to multiple, and they all tell me the same exact. Like honestly, this doesn't really matter unless it says Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Cal, Stanford. And even then, like, okay, what degree are you getting? I have a good friend, who played quarterback at Cal. What degree are you getting at Cal? Is it? I mean, seriously, if it's not, if it's just a baseline degree, what does that mean? You're going to have to go to grad school anyways. And then, in grad school, that's where you can, basically specialize. For me, that's where you can get the mindset of, okay, I can go apply to grad schools. And I think also too, and you know this, but the type of, what can I say? The type of marketing ability, and then also just like connections that you can build as a college athlete, they go really, they go really far. I have a lot of friends, and former teammates, and just acquaintances who, career wise, have been really boosted because of college athletics. And I know me, specifically, I own Preps Recruiting with my brother, and all of our stuff that we have is based off of like relationships from the past, and relationships and networking through college athletics. And so that goes even a long ways. And on top of that, athletes get the free tutoring. They get, I mean, you guys get whatever you guys were. Our job, their job is to make you pass classes and be successful in the classroom. If you aren't, their job is at risk. If you got a team's got a low GPA, well, the coach is responsible for that at the end of the day. And so I've seen, I've seen some really good athletes who weren't really that smart, pass classes. Like, well, how did that happen? Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on where they assist. They're not, just straight up Derrick Rose cheating on an SAT for it, but it's one of those things where they're extending all the help that you guys need. And some families are worried about that, and I tell them that same thing. It's just like, look, they're going to make sure. Can he show up to class? Can he turn in his work? Okay. If he's not going to be a nuclear physicist, he's going to be all right.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I just think that's something that gets way too talked about is like the academic fit. It's just definitely a little bit
Yeah.
overrated. Definitely a little bit overrated.
I think that's the
Yeah,
best way to say it. I think it is. Now, again, if the kid's absolutely hyper specific on one thing and he knows he wants to be a chemical engineer, okay, well, then you can mark yourself to chemical engineering schools. You can go to the School of Mines in South Dakota, North Dakota,
yeah.
Rose Holman. You worked out with,
Ricky Easterwood.
yeah, Ricky. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Ricky started at Rose Holman. I mean, that's one of the top engineering schools in the country, if
Yeah,
not the top. And my grandfather, graduated from MIT. So there's some hyper specific stuff that goes on when it comes to engineering and those types of things. But just statistically, most of those kids, they say they're going to do that and they don't. You get into calculus in college and things are a little different. It's a little bit of a change. It's a little
yeah.
bit of a change. Um, and your stuff with you went to the junior college level too. Again, I don't think it is much is it as much now, but in certain sports and some certain families, JUCO is almost taboo. It's like, oh, I don't want to go to junior college. Like, hey, I mean, look, you guys, it's a cheaper way to get your associates. And if you need more film and playing time, I mean, there's a lot of kids and prospects that get completely elevated by junior
Oh
college
yeah.
programs. Um, when I talk to a lot of baseball families, everyone's really pro junior college. Football families, it kind of varies. But they're like, well, I get a lot of, well, we're gonna just gonna go to the local JUCO, okay, which is fine. But the odds of the local junior college being his best fit for junior college in the United States, it's not there. So like, there's about 500 others, okay, and you just want to make sure that one, you still need to market yourself to 4-year programs, just like you did when you were doing it for football. Like, it can't just be like, I'm just going to go JUCO. I don't have to worry about this right now. No, you need to build relationships with 4-year schools if you want to transfer out of junior college. And so people skip that step too, especially in the baseball recruiting. It's like, oh, well, we're just going to go to, I'm just going to go to, Tyler JUCO, and that's where we're going to be. We're going to go to Butte, and we'll figure it out from there. Like, you have to start building those relationships now. It matters. It all matters. And the college coaching tree is so connected. Whether they switch jobs, they all know each other, and they will literally follow you, and you can still maintain relationship throughout your entire process. Would you
Oh,
say that was true
100%.
for you?
100%. Yeah. I mean, like just having those
Yeah.
relationships helped
Yeah.
me get opportunities that, I wouldn't have had if I didn't have those relationships. And I kept that throughout the whole thing. I kept
Exactly.
on
Yeah.
checking in on them, and they see me on Twitter throughout the whole thing. And so when it finally came time to like go somewhere, they were like, they checked in and we had those conversations. And yeah, I had one coach from a D2, like we talked in high school. He offered me a PWO. He liked me a lot during then. And he was always like, hey, we're going to recruit you once you're done with JUCO. Literally drove up to Santa Barbara. He's there. It was from St. Anselm, the head coach from St. Anselm.
Mhm. Yeah. Which
Oh
is
yeah,
a long
great
ways
guy. He
away.
was just in the area. They were kind of doing some JUCOs, but he drove hour and a half. Met me at the stadium at like 8:30 at night, and we talked for a good while. And he just kind of was like, "Hey, I wanted to take some time to talk to you and get to finally meet you in person." And this is from a conversation I had
Yeah.
from like 3 years ago. So that was one
Yeah.
opportunity there that, if I didn't stay in touch, I would never have that.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And um that's a great example too. Tell me, you and I have had, especially like when you were, early high school days, and a lot of what you and I, or, when I was, kind of just going through the recruiting with you and just talking to you, like, um, relationship building. So
Yeah.
that's the next step that no one talks about, right? It's like, it's that, and arguably, it's equally as important. I don't think it's as important as film evaluation. I think film evaluation has to come first, but the next step is like just selling yourself and building relationships and just being able to, talk to college coaches. I saw one of your tweets the other day. I was just laughing because, the amount of times, one, kids' direct messages aren't open is crazy. Two, one word replies and answers. One word replies and answers. This is a coach that, I mean, and this may sound dramatic, but it's the absolute truth. There are literally thousands of dollars at stake here. One word answers, not doing research on a program. I know for us, like at Preps Recruiting, what we do is we just kind of take over and we send off the film for prospects. But, we have an entire online database of every university's information. So, that stuff's important. The location, the type of, the type of system that they run when it comes to football, the type of success they've had, or the type of, baseball program that they have, like stuff like that stuff really matters. And if you can't, just relate to that type of stuff or find a way to, bring it up in conversation, there's going to be a small percentage of kids who do, and they're going to absolutely pass you up on the recruiting board. So you talk a little bit about that, but we had a lot of conversations about, hey, look, this is what you kind of got to say. And I feel like you've always done a really good job with that. Just in general, you speak and you communicate really well, but talk about that. I think that's something that definitely needs to
Yeah.
get touched
No, I
on.
mean, I think I definitely look back at it and I'm like, I wish I think I could have done a better job, but I mean, that's always retrospect. But yeah, like you said, it's just such a big part
For
is
sure.
like, not the, like, yeah, the one word answers is just ridiculous. I live with one of the coaches that is on staff. He's, like assistant, in the house here. And he was telling me,
Yeah.
like, talking to some of the recruits that he had to text, and it's like, just so hard to talk to them. So yeah, I was always the same way. Like, just, hey, like, I'll, just acknowledge what they said, ask them a question, keep the conversation going. But yeah, like, just have real conversations with
Yeah.
people. Like, it doesn't have to be like one of your buddies and making jokes left and right, but, be interested in the person and learn more about them, and that'll go a long way in the process.
Yeah.
And then just like, not even, and you don't have to
Yeah.
get super personal, like, but just asking them, hey, like, what have you done in the past, or what's going on over at the school, and they'll kind of open up and they'll go from there. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And
No, a lot of people like, talk to me about your career. I mean, what I don't think prospects realize is like, the guy that's recruiting you, there's a big round table in every coaching office, right? And so these guys individually bring up kids. They all sit down and they all evaluate their tape, and they'll say, these were the conversations that I had with this kid. This kid knows more about this university than the kid you're recruiting. I think we should go with this kid. So, these guys fight and they advocate for these prospects that they're in, direct contact with. And sure, so, most programs, baseball and football and basketball, all three sports. And again, I don't really know anything beyond the other sports. Those are the most popular sports for recruiting, and they're also the most competitive sports for recruiting, I would say, as far as just like a physical number. Um, you want to you want to basically understand that you're competing with other coaches recruiting kids in different regions. They each have different parts of the country, and so you want to stand out. And sometimes that's a little bit of arrogance, but also being, sometimes it's, coach, listen, I would love to be a part of your program. I watched you guys last year on tape. I also watched some of your games. I think I don't think there's anyone better in the 2024-2025 class that you know, would fit your offense better than me. I'd love to get on a phone call with you. Also, too, I know you guys looked at my film. What are some things that I can work on? Stuff
yeah,
like that goes a long ways. And Kids, again, kids, I get it. I understand, man. I was 17, 16-year old, and I, fortunately, like I said, I had a dad that was really good at that stuff, and, it helped me out. But, yeah, that if anyone can learn anything on the relationship building, like, continue conversation, man. Continue
It will go
conversation.
such a long
So,
way, which is just it's literally like literally just if you continue a conversation, you're in the top percentile of recruits. Like you just increase your chances so much if you just do that because they'll at least like see that you can hold a conversation and like they don't want just think about if you're a coach like you're going to spend a lot of time with a recruit or not a recruit but like if you're on the team you're going to be spending a lot of time with you like guys like yourself. They do not want to bring in a kid who cannot hold a conversation
yes,
and is weird in meetings and in practice and like think about the
yes,
best players you've ever met. Like
yeah,
they were all really cool dudes. They could hold conversations, they could talk, and
yep,
they were fun to be around. And that's
yep. Yeah, they were good. They were good hangs, and they are guys that you want in your room. Yeah, I mean the too cool. Like I've seen a lot of kids. I've worked with kids. It's like yeah, like I'm like really cool. Like I don't really want to go into depth stuff. For me, all that is just a young kid just being insecure of not knowing what to say and thinking that they're going to get made fun of or whatever. But again, when it comes to the highly competitive sports, man. Like it's not about you. Okay, these coaches are bringing you in to win games. Their jobs. That's how they get paid. Okay, no matter what level in college, in the NCAA, in the NAIA, in junior college, these guys are getting paid to feed their families. So if you cannot be a professional, at 17, especially at your position playing quarterback, at
oh
17,
yeah.
you better act
Oh yeah.
30.
That's the
And I've heard some guy, yeah, you and I mean even it doesn't even matter your position. Like if you really want to be a successful college athlete, you better act 10 years
yeah.
wiser than what you are. Just point blank period. That's I think you got to force kids to grow up a little bit. And again, we're talking about thousands of dollars on the line at the end of the day. It is that. It is 100% that. Even a partial scholarship to go play baseball where they split it up. I mean, split that up, times that by 5 school years, times that by 10 semesters. Okay, that's something that you wouldn't be get going. That you would have to either a take out student loans or
Yeah.
b pay
No,
it.
I think the
So
like you said with the quarterbacks, it's like I mean, I think of quarterbacks, and we both think that way because we work quarterbacks, and I mean, obviously, you still train
yeah,
quarterbacks, so I mean, it's like we're around them all the time.
yeah,
But yeah, like with any other position, but yeah, quarterback especially, like if you have to act confident, because when you think about it, like I didn't realize it out of high school because they're kind of talking to me like, oh yeah, like they're not thinking, oh this kid's gonna come in and start it right away. But like as a JUCO transfer, that's what they're talking to you about. Like they're not calling you to be like, oh hey, we want you to come and
yeah,
develop. Like they're like, hey, we want you to come over and take over our program and go win us games. Like there's
yeah,
no question about it. And so like you have to talk
yes, yeah,
confidently because that's what they're looking for. Like they want you to come in and step in
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, 100%. And again, there is a small percentage of kids that are just so gifted and talented that these coaches are head over heels for regardless, and they make all the types of excuses. But you know, those guys usually don't pan out in
Yeah.
college. Just being honest. I mean, from what I see, professionals, film work, workouts, training, all that stuff, and then on the field, I mean, that stuff just takes care of itself. Simply put, it just takes care of itself. The most successful college quarterbacks and honestly even prospects period, like their mindset's different, and any college athlete will tell you in their locker room they knew which guys were going to be guys. Everyone that again, I don't want to say everybody, but the majority again of families and the prospects I talk with, their whole mind says I just got to I'm just trying to get to college. Like I want to focus on just landing the best offer possible and getting there. That is a great feat,
Yeah.
but it's the start of it. And everyone gets to college and you have a clean slate. I mean, that's why, I mean, I'll go back to Alabama. I lived in Tuscaloosa. So I was, I have, you know, there, we were around their teammates all the time, in Tuscaloosa. And I would hear Nick Saban stories passed down. We would hear all that stuff. And I love just watching, Alabama football, SEC football, but also to um, Saban's like, process just one day at a time, one play at a time, that type of approach. And all the best coaches and programs in the country have, it's trickled down. Now, do they implement it within themselves, which trickles down the team? Again, different story, but that's what they do. It's one of those things where it's a clean slate. He has 5 stars that don't play. for them, and they don't even touch the field. And so it's not enough. If you want to be a successful college athlete, it's not enough about getting to college. You have to find the right fit. You have to market yourself appropriately. And then when you get there, the real work begins. And I think most prospects miss that. I think most kids miss that. And that's why most kids don't play in college. And, I don't even have the statistics on this, but I would be very interested to know the percentage of kids that sign to go play at
Oh,
4 year or 2 year programs. Do
I
they
was gonna say
finish
I was gonna say the
at that
exact
four
same
year,
thing
two
because
year
I was
program? It's
thinking the
probably,
exact same thing. It's gotta be
yeah.
pretty high, shockingly high.
I think it would be shockingly high. I think it would be even higher if you
Oh
said
yeah,
finish
it'd be very
where
high.
they
And
started.
not with the transfer portal.
So yeah, and before we wrap this up and stuff, like even with the transfer portal too, like again, and maybe we can talk about that a different day. But the transfer portal, it's like majority of these kids are not re-signing to new programs for the transfer portal. So I mean, I have literally talked to I had a kid that he was a quarterback. I was advising him and his family at San Diego State. He was a 4-star at Arizona. His dad convinced him to transfer.
Hey, this is Trenton here, just coming from you in the future. Sadly, the last 4 minutes of this episode got cut off. Not that there was too much more to go over, but basically, just kind of wrapped up the episode. Talked about that we might do a future episode talking specifically about the transfer portal, which would be awesome. We were both hyped up about that. Um, but yeah, I just want to leave you kind of with at least something explaining why the video cut off. And again, appreciate you watching the podcast. Feel free to, whatever platform you're watching this on, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Twitter, make sure to leave a follow. If you can give a rating, that'd be awesome. Stay tuned for more episodes like this. And then be sure to follow Josh. Josh has Twitter, Josh Straughan. And then also he runs PrepsRecruiting that we brought up a couple times. If you're interested in their services, definitely reach out to them. They have a free app that's super useful. So can't recommend them anymore. But again, appreciate you watching the podcast. Sad that the last couple of minutes there got cut off. But again, thanks for watching and look forward to seeing you soon. Peace.